Hello everyone. In this clip I would like to present to you my game which I had played about 3 years ago, and even though it wasn't particularly fighting since my opponent unfortunately didn't manage to come up with a stubborn resistance, I think it's quite remarkable since the mate I was able to give in the end is something you don't really get to play all that frequently. In my opinion, that's a pretty beautiful one. So let's get started, and I hope you would enjoy the video. My opponent went d4, and for a few more moves we have just followed the very mainstream theory. I went d5, and here white has a number of moves. The main one by far is of course pawn to c4. There is also a move knight to d2. Recently Kramnik invented a pretty interesting idea c3. There are also some other continuations, a4, knight e5, whatever, but my opponent decided to go b3, which in my opinion is not a very reasonable decision, since after pawn to c5, black is already even pretending to be overtaking the initiative. There's a line which was featured in the game Kramnik Nepomniachtchi. Kramnik went pawn to c3, and after b6, he had played c4. The idea being that now the diagonal has been weakened, so challenging the center makes somewhat more sense. And if you look at this position, and now it's at the position in the game after b3, c5, you will just see that this is the very same position with colors reversed, when black is basically already playing as if he were white. My opponent played bishop to b2, and after c takes, knight takes, I think I have managed to come up with a rather strong positional decision, which is something that I think many of you and I myself wouldn't make this move either, probably, if I were to play it in Blitz, or if I didn't know of this idea before. Still, I have managed to figure it out over the board. How should black continue? You have to find a rather remarkable positional solution. I hope you have managed to spot the same things that I came up with. I played a5, sorry, e5, and after knight f3, e4, knight d4. Why is that so strong if black had to weaken the square on d4, and now the white knight is enjoying this amazing outpost? The thing is, by playing e5, e4, black not only didn't waste any time, he had also grabbed a considerable amount of space on the king side, and now he's hoping to develop some attacks there. For instance, after bishop to g4, queen to d7, h5, h4, bishop to h3. If possible, then the knight would go to c6 and e5, maybe to g4 later on. Black would try to cause quite a lot of trouble to the white king. At the same time, even though the knight on d4 is rather beautiful, and of course we shouldn't underestimate the importance of the central square, it's not really attacking anything, and white already lacks space, I would say, for his pieces, and it's not that obvious what white should do, while black's plan is extremely clear. I went rook to e8, just developing a piece, and probably thinking of some e3 ideas, and here my opponent absolutely had to create counterplay urgently, as fast as possible, and if you'd like to find it, you can stop the video. My opponent had to prepare the move c4. The idea of rook e8 was that now knight d2 would be rather bad, since I would have the idea of e3, and after taking I wouldn't capture the pawn, of course, I would just go knight to g4, and then take on e3 with the knight, and black's position just seems to be entirely winning at this point. But white could have prepared the c4 move with knight to a3, and after a ballpark continuation of knight c6, takes, takes, and c4, white does get counterplay. For example, if I just develop with bishop e6, we would get a rather tense and interesting position. For example, takes, knight to b5. For some reason in my old notes, I have written bishop to d7, knight e4, knight g4. Then black has a square on e5, and the position is rather interesting. Also, black always possesses the idea of going e3 at some point, which could become rather unpleasant for white. But as I'm looking at this right now, I don't understand why do I have to go bishop e6 followed by bishop d7 if I can already start creating some sort of initiative on the king side with such a move as h5, for instance, takes, knight b5, and now I can prepare the following positional idea. I can go queen to d7, force him to go knight d4, h4, rook c1, and now I wouldn't take on g3 or anything. The idea could be to seize even more space and make this bishop inactive by means of h3, bishop h1, and now let's say knight to g4. When black has much more space, his ideas include e3 or maybe knight e5 at some point. a5, a4, by the way, might become another interesting solution on the other flank. And I think black is definitely the one who has the initiative. I wouldn't say he has a big advantage, but it's clearly much easier to play with black. My opponent went e3, and obviously this move that weakens all the light squares. The square on f3 makes it possible for black, makes it much easier for black to play bishop g4, knight g4, and then knight e5. Cannot be good. So I wouldn't really like to concentrate on the next moves that both of us made, and I'd like us to get to the following position. Queen to d7. We would make a few more moves. Knight to f3. It seems black is just driving all of his pieces on the king side. Takes, knight to g1, knight to e4, queen to e1. It seems that the end is more or less approaching. And here I want bishop to h3, which is a move that was connected with the idea that I managed to execute in the actual game. However, I had an even stronger solution, according to the engine. Since bishop h3, as the engine says, can run into something like knight f3, takes, and black just won in exchange for a pawn. He keeps a dominant position of all of his pieces. The knight on e4 is great. White didn't create any threats, so black is clearly much better. I would even say he should be winning in the long run, but it's not as big an advantage as it could be after the very precise bishop d4. Eliminating the knight that was able to capture this pawn at some point, and after say takes, rook to c8, for instance, rook c1, queen f5, black is just completely winning as he is coming up with queen h5, bishop h3 and stuff. And of course, white doesn't have a single threat, a single active idea. It's just lost. But I want bishop h3, which is pretty good as well. Takes. Now this threat is queen g2, of course, rook g1, rook e5. And now white tried, so white couldn't really take on f3, since after, for instance, rook to f5, I guess, this is what I was calculating, takes, rook to takes f3, the bishop is hanging and knight f2 is hanging, so white just has to resign, which is why my opponent went rook to b1, which is, well, I wouldn't say a logical move, since probably in such a bad position, any decision he would make is kind of bad, but it's definitely a good move in that regard, that it allows a very beautiful ending of the game, which I would like you to find. How should black continue in order to win here, as fast as possible? I hope you have paused the video and managed to find the forced mate. Of course, to make such a move as rook h5 seems to be rather sensible, but then after knight f3, white keeps on fighting, even though black clearly has the initiative. Instead, you can just deliver a mate in 2. Everything you have to do is just to sacrifice your queen for a single pawn. Queen takes h2. And after here white resigns on account of king takes h2, rook to h5. And even though this wasn't a particularly difficult or a tense game, I still wanted to shoot this clip, as in my opinion, you're not really gifted, I wanted to say given, but probably gifted, a chance to give such a lovely mate in a serious classical tournament game. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope you would be able to deliver such a mate yourself as well. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in my other videos.